Welcome to the Philosophy Zone, where we dive into the big ideas that shape how we think, live, and understand the world. Today we're stepping back in time to explore one of the most towering figures in Western thought, Aristotle. Specifically, we're going to unpack his logic, the system of reasoning that's been a cornerstone of philosophy, science, and even everyday arguments for over 2,000 years. Aristotle's logic isn't just some dusty old theory. It's a tool that can sharpen your mind and help you make sense of the chaos around us. So let's get started. Picture ancient Athens around 350 BCE. The city's buzzing with ideas. Philosophers debating in the marketplace. Students scribbling notes. And Aristotle, a youngish guy with a sharp mind, is soaking it all in. He's studying under Plato, one of the greatest thinkers of all time. But Aristotle's not just nodding along, he's questioning, probing, and starting to carve out his own path. Plato loved big abstract ideas. Think of his world of perfect forms, where everything in our messy reality is just a shadow of some ideal version. Aristotle, though, was different. He was obsessed with the real world, with how things actually work. He wanted a system to figure out what's true, not just what sounds profound. That's where his logic comes in. So what is logic? At its core, it's the art of reasoning well. It's about how we move from what we know to what we don't know without tripping over ourselves. Aristotle didn't invent logic from scratch. People were arguing and reasoning long before him. But he was the first to lay it out, like a science. He gave us a framework, a set of rules to make sure our thinking holds up. Think of it like a mental toolbox. Whether you're debating politics with a friend, deciding what to believe about a news story, or even figuring out why your car won't start, Aristotle's logic is there, quietly shaping how you connect the dots. Let's start with the basics. Aristotle's big innovation was something called the syllogism. Don't let the word scare you. It's just a way of structuring an argument. A syllogism is like a little reasoning machine with three parts, two statements, called premises, that lead to a conclusion. Here's a classic example. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Sounds simple, right? But this is the foundation of clear thinking. The first premise is a general truth, something we know about a whole group. The second premise connects an individual to that group. The conclusion follows automatically if the premises are true. That's the magic of it. If you set it up right, the conclusion isn't just likely, it's airtight. Now, Aristotle didn't just toss out this idea and call it a day. He went deep, cataloguing different kinds of syllogisms, figuring out which ones work and which ones fall apart. He was like a detective of thought, mapping out the rules of what makes an argument valid. Validity, by the way, is a key term here. It doesn't mean the conclusion is true, it means the reasoning is solid. For example, take this syllogism. All birds can fly. A penguin is a bird. Therefore, a penguin can fly. The logic is valid. It follows the same structure as the Socrates example. But the conclusion is wrong because the first premise isn't true. Not all birds can fly. Aristotle's point was that logic helps you spot where things go wrong, whether it's a faulty premise or a sloppy connection. This obsession with getting the structure right is what makes Aristotle's logic so powerful. He wasn't just interested in winning arguments. He wanted to understand how we arrive at truth. And he knew that truth isn't always obvious. We're human, after all. We get swayed by emotions, by flashy rhetoric, by what we want to believe. Aristotle's logic is like a guardrail. It keeps you on track, forcing you to check your assumptions and make sure your reasoning holds water. Let's pause for a second and think about why this matters today. We're bombarded with information, social media posts, news headlines, hot takes from every corner. How do you sort through the noise? Aristotle's logic gives you a way to cut through the fluff. Say you read a claim online, all politicians are corrupt. That's a big, bold statement, a premise. To test it, you'd ask, is this true of every single politician? If not, the premise collapses, and any conclusion built on it, like you can't trust any politician, is shaky at best. Aristotle's approach teaches you to slow down, break things into pieces, and check the joints. Now, Aristotle didn't stop at syllogisms. He also dug into what makes a good premise in the first place. He was big on observation, looking at the world around you. Unlike Plato, who thought the ultimate truth was in some abstract realm, Aristotle was all about the here and now. He'd wander around studying plants, animals, even politics, trying to figure out what makes things tick. His logic was grounded in that curiosity. To build a solid premise, you need evidence, not just gut feelings. If you're arguing about whether a new policy will work, Aristotle would tell you to look at similar policies, study their outcomes, and build your case from there. Sounds like common sense, but it's amazing how often we skip this step. Another thing Aristotle gave us is the idea of categories. He realized that to reason clearly, you need to know what you're talking about. Are you discussing a thing's substance, like what it's made of? Or its quantity, like how many there are? Or maybe its quality, like whether it's good or bad? He came up with 10 categories to describe reality. Stuff like substance, quantity, quality, place, and time. These aren't just philosophical jargon. They're tools to help you pin down exactly what you mean. If you're arguing with someone, and you're talking past each other, chances are you're not clear on which category you're addressing. Aristotle's categories are like a map to keep the conversation on track. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're trying to decide whether to take a new job. You could use Aristotle's logic to think it through. First, lay out your premises. This job pays more, but it's in a city with a higher cost of living. I want a job that's fulfilling, not just lucrative. Then test those premises. Is the pay increase worth the move? What does fulfilling mean to you? More responsibility, better work-life balance, a chance to learn. By breaking it down, you're not just going with your gut. You're reasoning like Aristotle, building a case step by step. One of the coolest things about Aristotle's logic is how universal it is. It's not just for philosophers or academics. It's for anyone who wants to think clearly, whether you're a scientist testing a hypothesis, a lawyer building a case, or just someone trying to make sense of a messy world. And it's not about being cold or robotic. Aristotle knew humans aren't just logic machines. We're driven by emotions, desires, even imagination, but he believed that logic could help us channel those energies, make better decisions, and avoid being suckered by bad arguments. Now, Aristotle's system isn't perfect. Later thinkers, like the Stoics or modern logicians, pointed out its limits. For example, his logic is great for clear-cut categories, but less helpful for probabilities or complex systems. If you're trying to predict the weather or analyze quantum physics, Aristotle's syllogisms might feel a bit clunky. And he could be rigid. His categories assume the world is more stable than it sometimes is. But even these critiques show how foundational his work was. He gave us the starting point, the first map of human reasoning. Without Aristotle, we wouldn't have the tools to question him in the first place. Let's zoom out a bit. Why does Aristotle's logic still resonate? Because it's about clarity in a world that's often muddy. We're living in an age of information overload, where people throw out claims without backing them up, where emotions can drown out reason. Aristotle's logic is like a lifeboat. It doesn't solve everything, but it gives you a way to navigate. It's a reminder that truth isn't just what feels right. It's what holds up when you test it. So next time you're in a debate, or reading a headline, or just trying to figure out what you believe, channel a bit of Aristotle. Ask yourself, what's the premise? Does it hold up? Does the conclusion follow? It's not about being a know-it-all. It's about being curious, rigorous, and honest with yourself. That's the spirit of Aristotle's logic. Not just a set of rules, but a way of engaging with the world. Thanks for joining me in the Philosophy Zone. If this episode got you thinking, share it with someone who loves a good argument, or someone who needs to sharpen theirs. Until next time, keep questioning, keep reasoning, and keep exploring the big ideas that shape our lives. See you in the zone.